be smoldering without them. They break down stigmas, build up equity, and just say yes. Yes to good troublemaking. Yes to being empowered. Yes to fair access. Now more than ever, Weedmap says yes and stands with the fighters for change.
So a little bit about me. After college, I played college ball here in Oklahoma, so I kind of have some old roots here. You know, it's kind of what led me back here. And then from Oklahoma, I went to Texas, and then from Texas, I spent some time in Europe playing ball. And that's kind of exactly when I got into the industry. Is when I came back from my rookie season overseas. My friends were already in the old traditional medical market of California. So back in 2009, I became a bud tender, and now we're here.
And now we're here, man.
Yeah.
So what was some of the, I mean, you did speak about, you know, coming back from overseas and seeing some of your friends in the space, but what other motivating factors did you have to become a dispensary owner?
I couldn't really tell you that it was necessarily like a dream of mine, or it was a passion that grew on me. You know what I mean? I was full force, you know, full-fledged athlete my whole life. My passion. Always been a cannabis user since I was 17 years old. So it was more the business aspect of things that really like pulled me in. Actually seeing retail dispensaries selling medicine to the public, it was just intriguing, and so it intrigued me from a business standpoint. And at that point, I was trying to just, you know, pay the bills and you know, kind of stay afloat, you know, living at my mama's house, coming back home from overseas. And like I said, it grew on me. It was a passion that really has become, you know, my everyday life.
All right, great. And we are there she goes right there. Dr. Shonda, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm sorry we had to start a little bit early, but we were waiting on you. We literally just got started. Could you please introduce yourself for people who are also just tuned in, and just let them know what you do?
Definitely. My name is Dr. Shonda Macias. I'm a multi-state operator in the cannabis industry. But I will tell you that I was the first African-American woman in the nation to have a medical cannabis license, and super proud, but also know that we need more representation here as well. So, but my training, I'm a cell biologist. I'm a two-time Howard University graduate, focused on cancer research for most of my career at Howard, earned my PhD, and then went on to Rutgers University for my MBA in supply chain management as well as operational analysis. And so currently I am just continue to expand in the cannabis industry, helping patients with their healthcare needs, and also doing good with cannabis by making sure that we're changing policy as we go, so that we break up the pipeline to prison that has been created by policy previously. But now we're going to really focus on opening up that pipeline so that patients get the medical assistance that they need.
Yes. And I was just speaking to Dustin about the motivating factors that got him into the space. What are some of the motivating factors that got you into cannabis and made you want to become a dispensary owner?
First of all, I just need to say I'm honored to be here with Dustin today, you know, big fan. And but to go on into the space, I actually started breast cancer research at Howard University back as an undergraduate, focusing on women's health. I studied the BRCA1 gene. And then as I started to just go more into my healthcare studies, what I realized is prostate cancer was one of the biggest cancers that impacted the African-American male in our country and globally. And so I switched my studies pretty rapidly and started to study prostate cancer metastasis to bone. After that, when I realized there were certain health disparities in our community and what we're looking at, how we treated it, one thing I noticed is that medical cannabis was one of those medicines, and we were denied access to that healthcare treatment plan. But we took a patient and made him a prisoner, which was even more alarming and hurtful to myself. And at the time, it was just, we didn't have enough power to be able to change that narrative. And I'm super excited that we're in a different place, different time now. And, my research from 20 years ago can now really help our community, and a patient can get the healthcare they need through medical cannabis versus going to prison.
Yes, yes. All right, let's move into state laws. State laws. I know laws vary from state to state when it comes to cannabis, especially on the retail side. Speak to us about the laws that's going on in Oklahoma, Dustin, and what are some of the hoops and ladders that you had to jump through in order to get your dispensary launched?
I would say, compared to the rest of the country, Oklahoma is probably one of the more flexible, easier routes to licensing. It definitely, the laws were written a lot better than California. California was still a heartache to a lot of people out there, especially on the social equity side. But some of the hoops basically has just been COVID. COVID has taken a lot of the state workers, a lot of the city workers. These are union jobs. They're basically, choosing when they want to come to work or not come to work, whether they're either fearful of, of COVID-19, they're staying home. So I know for, Oklahoma City, it's been rough for, everyone from getting renewals to, new licenses. There's only a couple of people working in the city. Inspections are slower. Inspectors, I've had to wait 6 weeks for inspections that would typically take 7 days. So it's been the pandemic, as well as weather issues. We've been locked in the house for 2 weeks, so we had to stop some of our our build outs, some of our inspections. So I think it's just it's part of the industry. It just kind of comes with the territory of, you're going to have to jump through hoops. Every state's different. I spent some time in the Michigan market as well. Same thing. You're just gonna, everyone at the state level and the city level is doing this for the first time. Whether they've been doing it for X amount of years, or Oklahoma's only been around for 2.5 years. These people are still trying to learn as they go. So, there's not anyone teaching them. They're basically learning exactly, what, California's been doing for so long, or what, Michigan's been doing for so long. They're just trying to figure it out, and can't put all the blame on them, but you definitely have to keep the pressure on them, and so I would tell anyone in our position, if you're applying for licenses, just stay steady. Make sure you're calling the city every day, you're calling the state every day. Make sure you're calling your inspectors, and just stay resilient on it.
Great. And Dr. Shonda, speak about the laws in DC and what makes them different, I guess, from any other place in the country.
Well, starting out in DC was really, we're such a passionate population here. So we actually have a medical program, and we voted for adult use as well. It's recreational, but there's just no retail establishments that you can sell it at until the government changes their mind on that. But what I can say is that it has been just a lot more liberal. It's moving faster in the Northeast regions in comparison to the South, where I mostly operate now, getting the programs established, where there's still a lot of mandatory minimum sentences in place on the federal level, as well as on the state level, with different possession charges. Even though that the state has legalized medical cannabis, we know that it's not decriminalized throughout the state. New Orleans in 2016 decriminalized it, so it's a civil penalty. And I'm working with the mayor of Shreveport, Adrian Perkins, to work on decriminalization, and other mayors to come on board. But the real issue is that unless the states decide that they're going to make this a non-criminal issue, it's going to continue to persist through the South in heavier numbers and heavy accounts in comparison to the Northeast and Washington, D.C. One thing about the Northeast is that we're very progressive. We are able to change laws, because even on it's a bipartisan impact, where both Democrats and Republicans believe in certain policies, where in the South it's not reflected the same.
All right. Social equity is a hot button topic from Massachusetts to California. The conversation of social equity and how social equity can help balance out the industry when it comes to having more people of color involved is definitely a conversation that's being had. What's your feelings on the state of social equity currently? And we can start with Dr. Shonda.
So social equity, as you know, to get in the cannabis industry, you need three things. You need capital, you need the opportunity to apply, and you need the resources, the education to know what to do in the business itself. And so the social equity has given us the opportunity to actually compete against the big multi-state operators. Currently, though, it's failing us. It's not in place where all three of those issues are in place to be able to sustain the long-term business plan. And so with that, even though we have an opportunity to enter, we usually have to wind up selling most of our businesses, the equity stake to the investors. And then we have to also find operating partners that show us how the cannabis industry works. So I believe in social equity, but the programs have to be more developed, and they need to think about the long-term survivorship of the small business, and currently they do not.
Yes. Dustin, how do you feel?
I mean, I feel just as much as Dr. Feels about this. It's like I come from California, so we only, we saw Oakland, put their social equity piece together. And I thought they did a decent job at it, and when I thought it was going to come to LA, that's when, myself and my partner were going after social equity licenses. I was a tier 3 because I had not been convicted, of a felony charge for cannabis. So it's rough because the people putting it in place aren't always people of color. You know what I mean? They might be the face. There might be a couple faces that that feel like we recognize, but as far as LA, it was so political and it was so corrupt that I feel like there's just so much more progression that needs to happen with social equity, because there's so many people like ourselves that that just need the opportunity. You know what I mean? I mean, I think it's not even about capital. It is capital, but not just having an opportunity to even have the platform to get there it's almost set up for failure. I feel like social equity is set up for failure right now. So there just needs to be more people speaking about it at a high level. And we got to figure out how to get the corruption out of it, because a lot of the social equity is basically, hey, a social equity applicant needs to own 51% of the lot, of a license. And then the business is split up, they own 5% on the back end of, splitting dividends. You know what I mean? It's basically, here, you use you as an applicant, get out the way, and, our business will do the rest. And I just don't believe in, I don't believe in the social equity, pieces that are developed so far.
Do you have anything to chime in on, Dr. Shonda?
Well, I think I have to say I completely agree. It's just not set up. You give us a screwdriver and a screw to build a rocket ship, and we're just going to fail.
Yeah. But I have hope.
Yeah, and the real hope comes from the fact that we do have people like yourselves currently in business. Leading a cannabis retail company, especially as a BIPOC person, speak to us about the importance of that, being a person who's already in this space, and how that representation can also help encourage other people to get involved.
I'll jump in there. What's important, I think, I was very hesitant to be open in the beginning about my participation in the cannabis industry, just because the stigma and the impact it's had on my community. When you have family members and friends that have went to prison, and then you tell them you're going to jump into the industry, and they're like, what are you doing? Like, yes. Are you trying to go to jail too? And I'm like, no, policies change. And they're like, in America, policy changes for everyone except for African Americans. So, those were some of my initial hesitations, but I realized is that if I didn't become vocal and visible with my platform, that we would still be in the same place we are now, which is that we didn't have the proper role models to tell us and invite us in. And so that's where my strength came from, knowing that we were the ones that were going to provide that voice for future generations to come in. And especially with my work at Southern University, it's really important that educate future generations of African Americans to understand the industry, to get educated, to have careers in this industry, to be able to start their own businesses in the industry and have that voice persist for generations way after I'm gone. And so this is why it's important. I'm just grateful that I was able to get in when I was able to get in to be that role model to others. But I also encourage African Americans and women like myself to jump in now and become that changing voice and make us better, because we have so much work to do.
Yeah, Dustin.
I just for my I like to control what I can control. I think I can have a huge impact on that, and by what I mean by that is, even if there isn't a social equity piece in Oklahoma City, I'm gonna basically by my actions, be the social equity piece. I can hire and have that diversity rainbow within my employees. I can, with my own actions, I can pay it forward, and to the public eye, say, okay, look, this is a very diverse business, and this is what they're doing over here at Oklahoma Kush. They have African Americans hired, they got Native Americans hired, there's Hispanics. And I really think that if I can do that, then at some point, progressively, I can show, what people are doing at a high rate in the business, because, the stigma is that we don't know, we're not smart enough to be, corporate business people, you know what I mean? And in this space, I think is a perfect chance to prove that, so I do it by hiring. I did it when I was with Viola Brands out of California and Michigan. We just hired, a diverse group of people. And when you hire a diverse group of people, then they can spread it, and it's almost like a domino effect.
All right, and we just lost Dr. Shonda. She had her battery died, but we still have a couple more questions, and Dustin can definitely take care of these. What are your opinion on some of the new states that we are seeing legalized? Since election time, we've seen even more states join the legal side of the things. What's your opinion about seeing some of these new states come into the market?
I think it's a beautiful thing, especially in a pandemic where we had an economic crisis, right? I mean, there's a lot of jobs lost. There's a lot of work that, that is just not on the table for families. And I truly think cannabis, as it continues to progressively, go through these states and get legalized, I think it's gonna affect our economy in a positive way. So it's good to see it. It's good to see that our country's, becoming a lot more progressive. It's good to see adult use in a lot of these markets. And I truly believe it's what's gonna, bring our economy back to life.
Yeah. So what do you feel like is the outlook or the direction for cannabis going into 2021? I mean, we still are in a pandemic. There's still hindrances to some of the things we can do.
Yeah.
But what do you feel like is the outlook overall for the industry?
I think 2021 is going to be huge. You saw it, in 2020 when the pandemic hit with COVID-19 and we became essential business. Literally, I couldn't, it's hard to say this, with a lot of Americans that really struggled. If you were in cannabis at the time and you kept your foot on the gas, it was very rewarding for a lot of us. You know what I mean? It just showed that it had the power to, to make it through something so terrible in our country. So I think 2021, I would say, if you're a young entrepreneur, focus on the brand, focus on brand. I see a Cannabis back there. I think you can carry a lot of strength behind the brand, because that's what big pharma is going to come in. That's when big tobacco is going to come in. They're going to come in looking for brands. branded retails, branded cultivations, you know, branded services. And so I think, you know, right now, if anyone has a chance, you know, to really develop a brand, stand behind it, and it's a good foundation to have going to 2021. I think there's a lot of good movement for a lot of people who stay consistent through the pandemic.
Yes, man. Well, this has been a great conversation today. In closing, can you let us know how people can follow you on social media, how they can learn a little bit more about what you're doing in this space, and how they can possibly connect with you?
Yeah. So social media, my personal page is at I am Dustin Williams. You can follow me on there. In my profile, I also have at Oklahoma Kush, which is our retail dispensary and flower brand here in Oklahoma. And you can also follow at Hunger of the Trap, which is our docuseries that we'll be launching here very soon.
Awesome. It's been great to speak with you today, and I really
Thank you.
appreciate your time. I think we have one more person coming in at the last second. No, we should be good. Yeah, really appreciate your time today, and I think that you gave some great information for people who are watching today as far as what the state of the industry is going to be, how it's going to affect people of color, and where we are going to go all across the board. So thank
Just
you
gotta
very
keep
much
pushing.
again. Yeah, thank you very much again for everybody participating, and again, thank you very much for having me as a host today.